serves as a central sorting facility handling all incoming and outgoing mail for Rhode Island and parts of southeastern Massachusetts, including Cape Cod, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard. The total volume of mail processed at this facility is vast. Roughly 3.5 million items per day pass through Corliss Street en route to their ultimate destinations throughout the region and beyond. Our investigation remains ongoing, but based on the results to date, we have today alleged that these 7 men conducted a well-organized and wide-ranging conspiracy, a conspiracy spanning from early 2023 through February of 2024 to steal the mail as it flowed through the Corliss Street facility. Based on the evidence that we have developed, we allege that this group operated as a well-organized unit. As part of the conspiracy, at various times, members of the ring, working as mail sorters, extracted and set aside envelopes from the mail stream, often targeting specific items. For example, during the Christmas season, the conspirators selected brightly colored holiday envelopes that might contain gift cards, checks, or cash, and set them aside in separate mail trays, like the one you see here, before ultimately transferring them to backpacks and smuggling them out of the facility. Those trays, when full, hold on average 500 or more envelopes apiece. At other times, the ring targeted different potentially lucrative types of mail. For example, at the time of his arrest, one member of the ring was found in possession of a backpack stuffed with business envelopes. It is our present estimation that that single backpack, representing the haul of a single member of the ring on a single day, contained approximately $1.3 million in business checks. And I would emphasize that these thefts were not isolated occurrences. Surveillance conducted during the investigation showed multiple members of the conspiracy engaged in taking, setting aside, and then smuggling stolen mail out from the facility on any given day. While, as I say, the investigation remains ongoing, that snapshot should give you some sense of the scope and scale of loss at issue here. It was massive. It is our allegation that after stealing the mail and spiriting it out of the facility, members of the ring would meet up later, off-site, to divide their takings, with various members of the conspiracy focusing on particular types of stolen mail. Some took gift cards, others checks, still others cash, and some a mix. In the case of the gift cards, the conspirators used some to directly buy goods and services from various retailers, and in other cases provided the gift cards to third parties who ultimately used them at retailers themselves. We are here today for 3 reasons. First and foremost, public employment is a public trust, and breaching that trust for personal financial gain is both outrageous and a crime. In this case, the breach of trust is made more egregious by the participation of a supervisor, part of whose job is to prevent theft and ensure that the mail is not tampered with. Today's charges should make clear that this kind of public corruption will not be tolerated. Postal employees who help themselves to valuables that they are entrusted to deliver safely to their destinations will be held to account. Secondly, if you are a member of the public and you know or have reason to think that a gift card or cash or a check that you mailed or expected to receive anywhere in Rhode Island or parts of southeastern Massachusetts, and basically that's all areas with zip codes beginning 025, 026, 027, 028, and 029, and it went missing during the period of our investigation, that's effectively from March of 2023 to the present, we're asking you to reach out to the points of contact that you see here, either on the web, by email, or by phone. I want to be clear that given the nature of this crime, all too often stolen goods, especially gift cards and cash, are quickly spent and pass beyond the reach of recovery. But our investigation remains ongoing, and to the extent that your information can help us identify additional theft, we appreciate your help. And finally, I want to reemphasize the need, separate and apart from this case, to exercise prudence and caution when mailing valuables, particularly funds, in any form to protect yourselves from theft. With that, I'll turn the podium over to Special Agent in Charge Modafferi for some additional brief remarks, and then we'll take any questions you may have.
Sir, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Matt Modafferi. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for the U.S. Postal Service Office of Inspector General, Northeast Area Field Office. I just wanted to remind everybody that the overwhelming majority of U.S. Postal Service employees are hardworking and trustworthy people who come to work every day to serve the American public by moving the U.S. mail to its intended destination. Unfortunately, though, there are some that abuse their position of trust to benefit themselves. And when this occurs, like the alleged crimes in this investigation, the special agents of the U.S. Postal Service Office of Inspector General will diligently work with our law enforcement partners and the U.S. Attorney's Office to disrupt their criminal acts. The U.S. Postal Service Office of Inspector General would like to thank our partner law enforcement agencies, specifically the Providence, Rhode Island Police Department, the Smithfield, Rhode Island Police Department, and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, Boston Division, for their assistance throughout this investigation. We would also like to thank the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Rhode Island, for their continued support in upholding the law. If anyone feels that they may have been a victim from these alleged criminal acts, I ask you to reach out to the USPS OIG hotline. You can file an online complaint with USPS OIG at www.uspsoig.gov/hotline, or you can contact us by phone at 866-644-5696. Thank you.
Ryan.
You mentioned the business checks. Were they able to either wash those checks or somehow cash them?
So the good news is that in this instance, those particular checks were intercepted by postal inspection agents. The Inspector General's office took those into custody, and as a result, those checks were not negotiated.
And were those sent back to people, as far as you know?
So notification was made to the individuals whose checks were stolen in that particular instance.
So mostly it was gift cards and cash that they were able to...
Well, I want to be,
Yeah.
as I indicated, that instance involving the backpack full of $1.3 million checks was one particular seizure, which we believe was reflective of a course of conduct that went on over a much longer period of time. So we believe that checks as well as gift cards and cash were stolen over the course of the scheme.
Can you give just an estimate, like at least so much in value?
That's one of the things that we're still attempting to determine. I think if you look at one backpack, one day, $1.3 million, and you extrapolate out, you can probably come up with some figures on your own.
About how many victims have been identified, particularly when it comes to the gift cards, cash, etc.?
At this point, we're still in the process of determining the total number of victims, and that's part of the reason that we're asking the public to reach out, but it's a substantial number.
How did you come to discover this?
Initially, we came to discover this because of thoughtful members of the public, specifically some folks on Cape Cod who were missing things that they expected to receive through the mail and reached out. And as a result of that, the Inspector General's office launched a quick and effective and efficient investigation, brought our office into the fold, and we went from there.
It looks like everyone except the supervisor had worked there for like only a couple years. Can you just speak to the fact that like these weren't like 20-year employees of the Postal Service?
It was an array in terms of length of service. I believe there was one individual who was a seasonal worker. The rest were full-time employees, and as you indicated, the supervisor was there quite a bit longer. Frankly, from our perspective, there is no length of time, long or short, after which it becomes acceptable to commit federal crime.
Do we think the supervisor was like the leader in all this, or certainly playing a bigger role?
I'm not going to speak to specifically what our allegations are relative to what will ultimately be presented in court, but his role was vital to the carrying out of the scheme.
Is there any connection to incidents that have been happening in Massachusetts with the post offices and the mail being stolen? Is there any connections at all?
I can't speak to that. As I say, our investigation is ongoing. Our hope is that by bringing this prosecution, we have a deterrent effect on any type of mail theft that involves insiders. Right.
Do you know? Does anybody know if anything's changed at the distribution center because of this?
I'll let the special agent in charge address that from the investigative standpoint.
From what we've seen, the complaints that have come in have dramatically decreased since we've had these individuals are no longer operating or working with the mail.
Something that just comes to mind, like when people work retail at the mall, you have to like get searched, like your bag gets searched before you leave the store. Is there any process like that in order right now at these locations?
The Postal Service has policies in place. What I can do is I can provide you maybe with a postal point of contact that can give you more information about what Postal's policies are for their facilities.
And at what point in time, or was it various, that the workers were either put on leave, or I know one of them was arrested, was charged with state charges a year ago, but it seems like most of this kind of came to a head in February. So when you said the complaints have gone down since these workers were no longer involved with the mail, was that about February or March of this year?
I can't speak to the exact point when the complaints went down dramatically. From my understanding, it's just as these folks have moved out of their positions, they are the complaints have gone down at that point. Go ahead.
I guess what I'm saying is they were taken off the job. It's been at least some period of time. They knew this was coming, correct? They knew they were under investigation. They had been moved out of the job when the investigation kind of came to a head.
Well, to answer your question, I can't speak to what they knew or didn't know, but every single one of these individuals, as soon as they were identified, have been administratively separated from the duty of sorting the mail. So in other words, as soon as they have been identified by the investigation, they have not been allowed to continue in their work.
I guess when was that? Or was it at
It
various
varies
points? Okay.
at various points.
Anything else?
There seems to be an uptick in these sort of cases, not just in Rhode Island, but all around the country. Is there some type of crackdown at this point when it comes to postal services and mail theft?
Well, I'll tell you that we've seen a lot of different forms of mail theft in this office and elsewhere, much of which has nothing to do with the hardworking men and women of the Postal Service. We've had instances in which mail carriers have been robbed. We've had instances of theft from postal depository boxes. And all of those are priorities on the part of the Department of Justice in terms of our enforcement efforts.
The trail of thought of people sending money, gift cards through the mail, you know, from your point of view, sending money, cash money, like, did they thought that there was any type of cash on this? Or just the idea of gift cards? Were they aiming for cash? Or?
Well, I mean, I think you can see here, these are all, none of these are actual mail pieces, but you can see here what a mail tray might look like, say, around the holiday season, and you see cards and, colored envelopes that might suggest that somebody's sending something other than an ordinary business letter. And I think, what we found here is that they definitely targeted those types of envelopes, and that many of those envelopes did contain things like cash or gift cards.
I know you already talked about maybe people shouldn't be sending cash in the mail, maybe not bright colored things, but people are going to continue to do that, right? What's another message you have to people out there who might not catch on to this and will maybe old school, still sending cash and these bright flashy types of things that could be part of something like this?
I mean, the best advice I can give you is don't do it. If there is an alternative method, you shouldn't be sending cash through the mail. And be careful about how you go about sending other things of value. Very good. Thank you all.